Good evening. Welcome to the September 10th, 2019 meeting of the Millis School Committee. I will be starting with roll call with my left. Carrie?
Here.
Robin?
Here.
Nancy?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Denise will be here shortly. Teacher rep is there, right?
Here.
And we have 2 student reps today.
Here.
Ben? Jody, anybody sign in for open session?
There's not.
All right. Then we'll go right to action items. Just take them in order. So start with consideration to approve the August 27th meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the Millis School Committee, August 27, 2019 School Committee meeting minutes.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we'll consideration to approve a vending machine.
I'll ask Mr. Wigan
All right.
to explain this.
Good
Usually you
evening.
guys give me a little more time to get up here. This proposal has actually kind of been circling around, I think, for a couple of years. But basically, vending machine technology has certainly evolved over the years, and it's now we're able to do the vending of meals and approved snacks in a vending machine. And in particular, the audience we're really targeting is the students who are here after school and here into really the early evening. And they don't get a chance to go home or go anywhere to get a nutritious meal. And the vending machines we're talking about can tie into NutriKids. So if the child is approved for free and reduced lunch, then they can use their free and reduced code and get the meal at the free and reduced price. It also has a cash option so that somebody who just wants to pay cash for the meal or cash for the a la carte food or approved snack, they can do that. Obviously, adults can do the same thing. The beauty of the vending machine is that unlike breakfast and lunch, where if somebody, shall we say, had money that they owed us, we would continue to offer that meal. The vending machine, we can tie their code in such a way that they would not be able to punch in their code and get it through the vending machine. So they'd have to still, in that sense, the only meals that they would continue to get while we pursued a bad debt situation would be breakfast and lunch. So it's a 3-year lease. It is something where we can get the machine wrapped with the Millis logo. So Medway is actually, Medway? I think yes, Medway is doing this. They've just got their machine. They haven't put it online yet, but they have just gotten their machine. We think it's an exciting opportunity to increase the meal availability to our students. We're not precisely sure yet where we're going to put it. We haven't had a conversation with a young lady who happens to be at the table tonight, but one of the places that we've talked about is whether it might be outside the library, but we also haven't talked with Athletic Director Grant because he may have a place that makes more sense. But the idea is we would have it in a place that makes sense for after school.
Terry, is it, so we'll have both just kind of snack type stuff and to what kind of meals?
It will have basically what the food service will do is they'll create a meal that meets the definition of an approved meal for the Child Nutrition Program, the Federal Child Nutrition Program. And so they'll be able to select that meal, okay, just like they would select the meal going through a lunch line. If they don't want to select a meal, but they want a healthy snack, so they want a piece of fruit or some other approved healthy snack, those will also be options in the machine. But everything in the machine will be basically things that meet the standards for the Child Nutrition Program.
Is it hot meals or just cold meals?
I think they're going to be just cold, and I knew you were going to ask me a question. I said to Sean, Sean, you don't need to be there. I can answer all the questions, and
Only
you can ask me the one question I can't really answer. So.
Only because where I work, they're not healthy meals, but they have
machines that have hot.
Right, they do have
like,
machines that
not-
are hot.
yeah.
In this case, I
Not
believe it
stuff
will
like
all be
that.
cold because part of what we're trying to do is have the fruit and again, some of those healthy alternatives, they're typically cold, and I think these machines, typically it's either or, it's not a combo
Yeah.
machine.
I'd assume it'd be like sandwiches and salads,
Yeah,
stuff like
but
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's machines that have like hot.
But
like,
he's right, I've
hot
seen the
dogs
machines that
and-
generate a hot
Yeah,
meal.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are machines that generate a hot meal.
Mr. Chair, so is the district food services supplying all of the product
Yes.
and, so all of that? So we pay $430 a month
For the
to the
machine.
company.
Right.
And other than the free and reduced, people will be paying a fee. How much money would we get out of the machine?
We would get the same amount of money that we would get for that meal. So for example, for a full meal, we would be charging the exact same amount. So somebody puts cash in it for a meal. They're gonna get, and I can't remember what our new rates are. I think the high school is $2.95, somewhere in that vicinity.
Say $3.
Let's say $3. Okay, so they're gonna pay $3 for that meal if they're paying cash. If they're free or reduced, they're gonna enter their code.
Sure.
So they're going to either get the meal for free, in which case we're going to get the free reimbursement that we would normally get from the federal government, or we're going to get the reduced reimbursement, and again, we make money on that. We actually encourage people to hopefully sign up for that, because we make money when we are federally reimbursed. And so those are the rates that we would get, just like we would get them normally. For the à la carte, they would be charged the exact same amount of money that we charge for the à la carte on the line right now.
So is there a possibility that we'll recoup some of these expenses, the $430?
Yes, oh, yes. The idea is that this is something, and again, it's paid for, I didn't say that, I apologize. It is paid for through the food service program, so this does not hit the district budget. And the idea is that this is not only going to pay for itself, but it's going to actually make money for the food service program. And historically, in places where this has been done, that's exactly what happens. Because essentially, you're taking, and now you're not offering a breakfast program and a lunch program, you're offering a breakfast, a lunch, in essence, a dinner program.
it would take about, at $430, it would take about 7 meals a day,
Yeah.
a school day.
Right. And what typically
Break even.
happens, and keep in mind that that can be actually serviced for a 6-week day, which is, again, so
Right.
we don't have, obviously, the cafeteria open on Saturday, but we have a lot of activity on Saturday. So on Friday, one of the last things that the team can do is they can basically fill that machine, sort of thinking forward to, all right, what do we want to have available for Saturday? So we get a little extra.
So
Lift there.
in that case, in terms of placement, I would also suggest putting it somewhere, or considering putting it somewhere where our highest level of activity is on the weekends.
Well, and that's why there's 2 or 3 different places we've been,
Because people aren't gonna aren't gonna come all
we've
the way
actually,
down here.
we've talked about by the gym.
So can the kids put their regular lunch pin in
Yes.
and not just the free and the reduced and pay?
Yes, the
through-
kids, yes, but, and I didn't maybe explain it well.
Yeah.
They can put their regular number in,
Yeah,
but if they do not have money on their account,
yeah,
that will not work,
okay,
okay?
yeah,
They can always put cash in,
okay,
all right?
yeah,
But assuming that, either if they're bona fide free, not an issue. If they're bona fide reduced, they will need to have a certain amount of money in their account because a reduced is not a free meal.
right,
If they are a paying student, then they would need to be in good standing
sure,
to be able to use their PIN number.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one other question. Is there any checks and balances in place? Say we have a student that may have reduced or free lunch, and he or she are here after hours and puts their PIN in and realizes they don't have to pay anything to get the food out, and their buddies are with them and they're hungry too. Is there anything there that will stop them from emptying the?
There's nothing that, well, all right, here's what I would say. That becomes an issue of our procedures.
Sure.
And so one of the things that we can do through NutriKids is we can look at activity on a daily basis. So one of the things is if we saw all of a sudden, because we do reports for every single student.
That Carrie Roach emptied out, took
Exactly.
5 meals
And so
yesterday.
what we can
Yep.
do then is in our communication with the parent, we can say, gee, Terry Wiggin yesterday bought 17 reimbursable lunches, and that's great, except that we don't think Terry Wiggin really needed 17 reimbursable lunches, so
Yes.
perhaps you want to have a talk with your son.
The other question that I have is just like how often it's checked and turned over and kept. I'm assuming that the things we're putting in are perishable, but it seems like the nutrition service.
At least daily, okay. And I say at least daily because it depends a little bit on what's being put in.
Sure, but like fruit, you know.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Are there going to be hours of operation, meaning is this available all day?
The idea is that it would be available all day, and that's why I say at least daily, because typically you're going to look at it after breakfast and after lunch. So those are 2 times in the day at least you're going to look at it.
So why wouldn't we put it in the cafeteria, find a space in the cafeteria? Because if people are going to be buying lunch there?
Well, but one of the things you need to keep in mind is that you're trying to make it accessible to a different clientele of students and primarily at a different time. If people are going to be having breakfast or lunch, we want them to come through the cafeteria. We don't want them to go to a vending machine. This is really primarily going to be an off, and I would even go so far to say primarily an after-hours clientele that we're trying to serve.
Right, but if the line is really long at lunch, I might go and use the vending machine and go back.
They might, but I would say again, if for example, outside the gym
Yeah.
is where we're talking about,
Yeah.
they're near enough to the
Close.
cafeteria that that's still a viable option. And I'm not saying that is where it would be, but it's a viable option.
When
I think
kids are brought to
the
lunch, are
idea's
they
great.
allowed to, would they be allowed to leave to go to the vending machine during lunch? Or once you're in, you're in?
They eat lunch outside my office, so I assume.
Some, one,
Some.
you know, rarely they do, but a couple kids. I think we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I think primarily, there's nothing per se that I can see being in the vending machine that they're not gonna be able to get in the line. So there's really very little reason
Okay.
at breakfast and lunch that they wouldn't be in, there would be no reason. You know, if there's a banana in the vending machine, there's gonna be a banana in the line,
Sure.
Yeah.
You good?
so.
I think, and I think it's,
I did, but I was I wasn't sure where to go.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I think that you've all brought up the things. My thought was maybe it would be on a timed situation, because what I can see happening, if it's convenient and it's not, as you were just saying, it's in between breakfast, lunch, whatever, and we have kids going down for other reasons to get snacks all day. I'm just
They can be
wondering
put in a time
how
situation.
that might
I've-
be better.
I would say probably, and I've had 4 of these previously. I think one of them we had in a time situation, the other 3 we did not. And I don't know that there was any, I wouldn't necessarily consider that the ones that weren't were particularly abused. But I mean, I think that's also something that, this is something that if all of a sudden we feel that it is being abused, it's literally, you know, a 30-second programming issue.
Mr. Chair. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know many of us have kids who play sports after school, and I know my daughters in the morning are trying to pack a snack, morning snack, a lunch, and then an afternoon after school something before their games or practice. And I think this is the perfect solution, so that they're not, you know, either trying to pack many things in the morning and backpacks full of food, or quickly driving somewhere to Dunkin' Donuts or something to get some food before their practice. So I see this as a real convenience, and since they are healthy and reimbursable, it should ideally be good, but with all things, we would pilot it and see and monitor and adjust.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move, to authorize the school business manager to enter into a 3-year municipal lease with the Inland Finance Company to fund a Max ST 5000 elevator with Vendonation School Vend Reader, school meal vending machine, a Max ST5000 elevator. Can we just say vending machine?
I'm
With
working
the-
real
with-
hard to make this a hard motion to read.
You know what you're gonna buy, right? You
Yes,
know
I
what you're
do.
gonna lease?
I do.
Okay, with this, to fund a school vending machine, school meal vending machine with custom graphics in the amount not to exceed $430 per month for 36 months. And said amount to be paid from the Millis School Food Service Program.
Second.
You got that, Jody? Just,
Can you cut and paste?
Right.
Yeah.
so if they copy and, we didn't, I did say at one point, yeah, that's fine.
I'll take what's in there.
Yeah. Second, right?
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that really the name of this?
Yes, it is.
Talk to the company about changing that.
I
Healthy
will.
vending machine.
I looked at it myself and I was like, why can't they just call it the, super duper 1000 vending machine or something?
Why don't we actually move the Metro West waiver out? All right, in our packets, we have the annual Metro West Basketball Association submitted their request for space for September and October. In it, in it is a request for fee waiver. I think Jody noted in it that last year it was, we had 50%. So there's a couple of different, so this is just September and October. So there's a couple of things we can, the form is September and October just from a scheduling, but we can, so we can either just deal with September and October and then come back closer to November, but I believe and I hope that there's an intention that over the winter, they're going to want to use the Clyde Brown Gym for games on Sundays instead of having to go to Mass Premier. So, yes.
That'd be great, yeah.
So, I don't know if we want to address all of that and work out pricing for all of it, or discuss just the September and October.
Mr. Chair, can we take what we have in front of us and then, I guess I would ask Metro West to put together what they're proposing for the winter, and then we'll take a look at that one when it comes in?
I mean, the request,
Is it just the same?
yeah, they would request that they not pay a rental fee. We would decide what fee we were gonna charge. The kicker on the thing about the winter for the games is right now, and Mr. Miller can correct me if I'm wrong, but they pay $94 a game at Mass Premier. So I would just keep the games here. The only question I have is that obviously it wouldn't make sense if they ended up having to pay more to come here than
Right.
to go to Mass Premier.
Right.
So when we deal with the games, we would just need to,
To take a look at that, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, is this just for practices or is this for the use of the gym on the, I can't tell, for the weekends? Or is this just for practice?
This is just September and October, which would just be practice,
Just for practices, okay.
because the games don't start until December.
Mr. Chair, sorry. I know every year this comes up and every year we talk about taking a look at how we,
I started a form of all of our fee waivers.
thank
last
you,
time.
of how we handle these fee waivers that come in, specifically if it's for a group that services
I'm gonna share it.
Millis kids and just Millis children, and if we should take a look at, do we charge them at all? Or do we significantly reduce that or just charge them custodial fees? I don't know if this is the right time to start that dialogue, but I would say that if we don't do that now, should we get together with like a subcommittee and take a look at it as a whole?
think if we're gonna,
I just sent it, I just sent you guys the sheet.
if we take a look at it as a,
Thank you.
kind of as a whole, or change the fee structure, that would be a kind of a broader
Yeah.
thing, not for,
Now for this
For tonight.
specific request here.
right.
So maybe we table that and just say that we need to schedule a broader discussion, but then address what we have in front of us.
I would agree with that.
So I put what we did for the Millis Pride basketball and the Mohawk Pride basketball when we had this conversation last time in June on the form so far. I don't remember what we did last year for this. I guess we
What did we do in June?
For the Millis Pride basketball, they, it was just a week, and it was $780 that they wanted waived, and that's what we waived, and they paid the custodial fee. And the same thing for the Mohawk Pride basketball team.
So I would say that those are both camps that are open to kids in that age group. I think the difference of what we have in front of us is Metro West basketball is specifically for Millis children.
But in June, we waived both of those fees?
I think we half. I think we waived.
They just paid for the custodial.
Yeah.
We paid the whole, we waived the whole,
We waived the whole
They
thing?
just had to pay the custodial.
for those 1 week camps, we waived the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what we did last year for them. I'm looking at pictures of-
And one thing too, for the
Last
custodial
year for
fees,
Metro West, we waived 50%.
Oh, yeah.
They paid 50% for as long as I can.
for the gym
Mm-hmm.
fees.
Right. And then custodial fees.
So custodial fees, do we only charge custodial fees if it's on a weekend? If there's no custodians already in the building?
That's what I believe, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Well, we did it for the,
oh, I'm sorry, are you asking a question? How about we come to a compromise for tonight and then deal with the season at another time and do a 25% of the fee? So it's not a,
So a 75% reduction?
yeah, yes, to say it that way. So we went 50% last year. This would be a 75% for September and October. And then we can have the other conversation, the bigger conversation, and this plays into it, about what we do about Millis programs using our facilities. So I make a motion to reduce the Metro West basketball fees for facility rentals for September and October of 2019 by 75% to pay full price for custodians, which is our protocol.
Second.
Moved and seconded, so that would take. So now we bring the fee down. So last year, we waived 2,730.
No, that's the cost.
that's the cost.
That's the
Oh,
cost for
for
2
2
months.
months.
The 2 months fee at the
Okay.
bottom right now.
Oh, gotcha, okay. So. 25% of that.
You have a calculator? You said that out loud.
So the fee would be $682.50.
And then whatever custodian costs there are. Because if we're hiring people on overtime, we never waive that. That's a direct cost to the district.
Mr. Chair, I would say I'm in agreement with the custodial costs, but if we've waived fees for the other groups that came. I know that we did it by 50% last time, but we did waive for both Metro West Pride and Mohawk Pride. 100%.
But that was only 5 days, whereas this is 20 days of use.
Yep. There's 5 of us here.
I'm just saying.
Matt, do you know how much you guys paid in total fees last year?
Yeah, I can get that pretty easily. I have it right in front of me, but, I mean, 50%,
Yeah,
Want to bring him up to,
Actually, yeah.
want to go up to the microphone, Matt?
Thanks, guys.
Good evening.
So a part of it, the big picture that has to be considered is, in Millis, there's only the high school and now the new elementary school. Those are really the only two gyms available to the program. We had other gyms locally that would have been completely priced out of, like Charles River School. For example, they're centered to different towns, Needham, Westwood, Dover, Sherburne, and not only are they bigger, they're just different, as we all know. And so when I tell you they priced this out, they pretty much tripled their gym. We just don't have the means to use them going forward. So we really just have these two gyms, as well as Rentham has the state facility over there, but they're closed all of December. So this is really all we've got. The 50% reduction last year was great. To waive it would be fantastic, but I do think an additional 25% is a good compromise. I talked to the rest of the board. I think we could try to be realistic. I think to do a full waive, I think, as amazing as it would be, I think an additional 25% is something that we would support. But there's also one other item to that. There was a gym time adjustment. I don't know if that was on there, where we've always had the gym from 6 to 9, and they changed that from 6:30 to 9. So is that something, we just focused on the fee right now, or can we just sort of piggyback that as well while we're on the
The
topic?
reason why that's done is the extended day program.
And that's throughout the whole year?
What's gonna happen in the winter when high school teams start? Because the high school starts at
Well,
3:30.
so two things. One, I was told that they couldn't have the playground gym until 6:30. That was in recent email conversations in the last week or so. And I also told them today that they can't have Sundays until afternoon. I don't know if that affects your games.
No, that's an easy fix, because you may not know this, but we have to send teams to Mass Premier, again, because the high school was the only one that was fit for games. Now with the new gym, we feel confident that we can host games there for the younger teams. We'd probably need 3 games, maybe 4 max, and we could easily do those in the afternoon. So we could make that
What's
work.
going on in the morning?
Yeah, what's in the morning?
Our teams. I was told our teams will be using the gym.
Yeah, so on Sundays, a lot of times the
High school
our-
practices.
the freshman
They
and
would
JV
go-
teams will play over there. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
So I think we can make the afternoon work on Sunday, just because we don't need it all day. But 6:30 to 9, that hurts a little bit, because especially where Thursday we only have a 7 to 8 slot. So that would be something I'd like to.
Would 6:15?
Yeah, what's the, I guess,
I
what's
don't know why they told me 6:30. They told me 6:30. That's what I put on the calendar.
They're out at 6.
It's not just extended day, however. The freshman volleyball, it's also using that for practice, and they will play their games there, that's my understanding. And those games could conceivably go till 6. So I think that's part of it as well. Because
So-
extended day is already working.
All right, so are we just talking about the 6:30 being a September, October, or through volleyball season? Because
I know
volleyball I
through-
get, because I don't think they use volleyball, I don't think volleyball used the old playground. So
Right.
that's a different, the extended day, I guess my question is, extended day has always been in the area, and they've always had, the Metro West, people have always been practicing at 6, and then when the winter comes, the high school teams are in there from 3:30 to 6 or 7, and then so, I guess the question I have is, why is extended day bumping all of that now?
I think it's extended day as well as our sports.
Right, well,
We practice extended day.
Is with the new school, is the dynamics of how the extended day is set up different now?
no, in the old school,
Right, it was in the annex.
In the old school, the extended day used the cafeteria and a myriad of other spaces. Okay, here, when the design of the program was made, they do use the cafeteria, as they did in the past, but they also, it was intended that they would use the gym. But again, they also knew that they had to give up their time in the gym for essentially freshman sports. And that's what they're doing. So their time actually oftentimes does end at 4, so that the freshman sports can get in there and do their practice and do their games. Now, I only know through volleyball. I'm assuming freshman basketball is going to be the same thing. I haven't heard that from the athletic director yet, but I'm just kind of guessing that's what will happen.
They historically are in there till 6 or 7 usually.
Yeah.
Nope, never beyond 6, just because we've
Oh,
always had it.
Yeah, no,
I'm less concerned of a conflict with the freshmen or the high school sports, even volleyball. Like, even if it is volleyball and the season extends along, we've always had that, compromise with them where the gym's theirs until they're done with it, so we can make that adjustment. But if it's all winter long due to extended day, that's where it might get a little tough. So somebody brought up a 6:15 start time. Could we go 6:15 to 9:15? So we get that half hour back.
But doesn't extended day end at 6?
Yeah, I don't think it's 6:50. I think if there's nothing else from a
From a
Millis
sports
athletic
perspective,
standpoint
yep,
going on,
understand.
I
I agree.
To just extended day to 6:15, I think that's no problem. I think we can make that happen. I think it's more the sports.
Yeah, because
coordinating the sports.
there's a hard 6 p.m. pickup. They're
Yeah.
not going to be in the gym.
No.
They won't
They're going to
in
be
the gym at that
ready
point.
to go.
Yeah, so I don't think that's a problem with.
So it's
extended day.
sports. So
It's more the sports.
it's sports. Okay.
Yeah, but we've always had that throughout the year, more at the high school with volleyball. So I think we can work around the high school sports part of it, just because we know that that's the priority. But I'd like to get that, so it sounds like we could maybe get that half hour back and just understand that, we're not in the gym until whoever's in there prior to is done.
And it's probably less of a problem once we hit basketball season, because in basketball season, you're gonna be doing the same thing that the team before you has been doing. There's no setup and takedown.
Yeah.
In volleyball, there is conceivably 2 nets that need to come down, so.
During basketball season, there really isn't a conflict.
Right.
There's a lot of synergy between the two programs to make sure that there's no issues there.
Yeah.
But so that's why I'm really not concerned about that one. If the extended day, I thought that was going till 6:30, but if that is a
No.
hard stop at 6,
No.
we can still make 6 o'clock work,
No,
I think.
No, they should be able to, yeah, we can work that out.
I
Okay.
think we need to double check some things with our volleyball teams and make sure that that can work, and then we can get back to you. I don't think the vote tonight is on the schedule as much as on a rate.
Right. Yeah, but I just wanted to bring it up just because it's, we've got tryouts starting in the next 2 weeks. So we just need to get to parents what gym times we have available. And so we're supposed to start next Monday, but if we need to push it a week to get everybody on the same page, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, we can, I think, settle and check with volleyball this week and make sure that we understand what their needs are.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's volleyball and soccer season, we recognize that, so we don't wanna, we don't wanna step on their toes with basketball this early, so we totally get it.
So I think there was already a vote and a second, right?
So
Or a
is there-
motion?
is there
A motion,
is the
sorry.
motion, Steve, can I get a motion, please?
I already did it. 75%.
Steve did the motion for 75%, I seconded that motion.
all right. Any other discussion? Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, guys.
Before we progress, I think we need to update this form. David Byrne has not been.
I've already asked them to replace the form, they have the wrong form, they know they've been.
Oh, yeah, that was in the form. There is in the
All right, just bringing it up.
Yep.
Jeez.
No, I was just.
No, I get it.
Mr. Chair, before we move on from this, can we just, maybe in the next working session, discuss fees, or how do you want to do that?
Why don't we
Just so we
just
don't
let-
miss it?
Jody, can you make a note, we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting?
What specific?
General discussion of facility fee rentals.
I want to have that conversation, but I also want to go back to the previous meeting where we had to spend thousands of dollars out of facility rental to pay for effectively an emergency repair. So I want to support and help Millis programs and organizations, but those rental fees are not just building up and we're not just making interest, we're using them, and thankfully we had adequate amount of money to actually ensure that. So I do want to engage in that conversation, but
No, but that's, yeah, let's have that conversation of,
what's the balance?
Right.
I mean, not the balance of the fund, but
yeah,
Agreed.
what's the balance of the
concept.
pros and cons, yeah, the concepts.
All right, consideration to approve fall town warrants.
Mr. Chair, this is wrapped in with the capital planning committee, the capital plan itself. There are two warrants in your packets. Form 7, the engineering study for the roof and concurrent study of the mechanical systems, and boiler repair warrant. And I'll ask Mr. Wigan to speak briefly to each of those.
I'm going to speak very briefly to the boiler repair because it's pretty straightforward as it's written. And I don't think we would propose any particular changes to that one. The engineering study, I had a conversation this afternoon with, if I remember the gentleman's name correctly, it's Garrett Hammond, who was the principal author of the original Tetra Tech study in 2014.
Yes.
We spent about a little over 45 minutes on the phone together, and he thinks that as far as our price, we're probably right on, but he does suggest that perhaps our description needs to be a bit broader. And his point is, and we actually, Mark and Nancy and Carrie and I, it was kind of touched on at the capital planning committee meeting, is that when you go into these studies, there's things that you find along the way. So for example, it was touched on the fact that if you're looking at mechanicals, you may also need to look at your electricals system. And so if you really kind of narrow the scope so tightly that you can't look at that, then you have a problem with your funding. You may have to look at asbestos. Is there asbestos in the roof? So that means you have to bring in an industrial hygienist to do tests. Are there different aspects of either project that are going to require some specialized engineering study? Again, he thinks that the actual work that needs to be done to generate the scope of work to be done and the budgeting and the information needed to come up with a reasonable warrant article for both projects can be done for $100,000. But he thinks if we make it too narrow of a definition, that could be a problem. So that would be the only thing I would say about the engineering study, is we may just need to rework the wording a little bit if you decide to support it and make it a little broader.
Mr. Chair, at the CPC meeting, the $100,000, was it clear, was it made clear to the CPC that the $100,000 is for a study, but there are replacements and system upgrades coming down the road? So that's, someone could look at that quick and say, oh, it's $100,000 to fix all these systems. That's not even remotely close. So that was made clear to,
Yeah,
okay.
we-
I assumed it was, but
And if you look at our capital plan, Steve, you'll see that it notes a bunch of the potential replacements that have to happen. Now, that would all be updated after the study, after
Sure.
we get the study
I
back. But
understand.
yeah, it's been made very clear that this is just a study to see what the extent of the repairs are.
And I will tell you, Garrett gave me a kind of a new rough number based on the latest means of square footage costs for roofs. And our roof number that we have in there is very low. It may be about double the number we're carrying right now. So,
What number is
So
that?
that's something we should update on the capital plan
Yeah, we should.
sooner rather than later.
no, we should. So
What number is that?
I think we're carrying about, combined between the two, we're carrying approximately $1.5 million.
Looks like
For
13
both
and
roofs.
14,
13 and,
under the scoreboard.
And,
help me, which,
Under the first
Under the
dark
light
line.
blue.
The light blue, are you
Second
looking
and
at this
third
one?
Under the first dark
There's two
line.
roofing.
13, okay, I see.
43 and 346,000. And again, we were just fooling around with some of the square footage numbers, and at $25 a square foot, which I think the number he was using, though I gotta check his math. So he may have had the wrong square footage number to work with, but if he's right, it would be between $3 and $4 million in the current number, so,
for a roof?
for a roof. Keep in mind,
$3 to $4 million for a roof.
And that's a membrane roof. If indeed the structure was sound enough, and I tend to agree, I don't think it is, but if the structure was sound enough for a green roof would be more, though a green roof also has a longer lifespan. So.
Did,
We're in the
was
wrong
there,
business, if
was
that's what
there,
you
was
wanna
there,
do.
was there a was there a discussion about, at CPC or with Mr. Hamlin? Hamlin, right?
Emmett, I think.
I think it's
Hamlin?
Hamlin.
I think it's
Yeah.
Hamlin.
Your email said Hamlin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the report
Was
over
there,
here,
was
actually.
there, was there a discussion about how much this mechanical system lift is gonna be? How much, if everything was
Well, the
bad?
mechanical
Like the
system-
worst case scenario?
Believe it or not, the mechanical system, while it may be similar in cost, is actually some good news, because the mechanical system, and again, part of it is needing to do the study, is that all the different pieces are here, but the mechanical system could be done in phases. So part of the study would be to say, okay, you need to do all these things, and here's how you could do it in phases. So for example, and I'm just making it up, okay, I'm not an expert. You're going to replace your boilers first, okay? Then you're going to do this, then you're going to do that. And again, it could lay out a project in a series of phases, so you could kind of spread the pain a little bit more. With a roof, you gotta do the roof, it's all or nothing.
So, I like your scenario of phases. What are at the end of all these phases, what is the potential for a roof? And worst case scenario, all the mechanical systems are replaced or upgraded?
$5 million.
I think that's low.
So if it's 3 to 4 million for the roof, it's $1 million for this other stuff?
I think 5 million is the low side. I think 7 million is maybe the high side.
Mr. Chair, can we, at some point, maybe ask the business manager to have another conversation with Mr. Hamlin, so maybe he can
Well-
price them out,
Well,
or,
that's what the
but-
study's gonna do.
But that's
The
what the
study-
study's supposed to do.
so we can't, okay.
The whole idea of
I'm
the
getting a
study-
little sticker shock here, I'm
No,
sorry,
no,
I
but-
apologize.
But that's,
No, it's,
that's exactly why you need the study. Because again, when we use square foot numbers, these are from a company called RS Means. They put out books, I think, at least every quarter, maybe even every month now, where they basically take averages for
Right.
New England, and then they'll break it down even more by like Boston area and so forth. And it's based on whether or not, project's subject to prevailing wage and all of those factors to come up with what it costs to do different types of
Compass
things.
Project Management estimated within $1 million how much that school was gonna
Right.
cost. As soon as our square footage got approved or authorized by downtown. I mean, I
Right.
understand that, and they were
that's
right.
essentially what you're going to be asking the person who does this study to do, is you're gonna be saying to them much the same thing. You're going to be saying, all right, we want you to come in, we want you to look at, the roof is your primary, the roof and the mechanicals are your two primary focus. But related to that, if we need to replace our electrical system, for example, to do mechanicals, we need to know about that, and we need to know where it
Right,
falls.
I understand.
If we need to test for asbestos, okay, then we need to find, or deal with asbestos abatement, we need to know about that. And by the way, for the public, we don't believe we need to, but it's something we would need to test for, to be sure. Because you did a renovation in 2000, and you put a new roof on then, and so that's probably been done, but you still may need to test for it. But all of those things are part of the study, and that's what gives you that number that becomes a much harder number, if you will.
I understand.
It also goes into, and this is part of the whole, this also goes into the capital plan, and, before, people start worrying about $10, $15 million numbers, part of what's going on with this capital plan, and they did it with the DPW building, they are rolling into bonding within the town's existing borrowing capacity through the existing tax structure. So the DPW building and the work being done there is not being done through an override. It's being done through what the town already is
That's
able
right.
to do. So part of what the capital planning committee is doing is they are looking at this. Yes, some of these numbers are going to be big, but they're looking at it over the next 10 to 15 years to figure out how things can get phased in with the least amount of new tax.
So I know we're doing a study, but to Mrs. Roach's point, we should probably update if we have better ideas on some of these estimates. I understand the study will give us concrete or fairly concrete numbers. If we have a better guesstimate, we should update it as soon as possible.
We should, but let me leave you with maybe a piece of optimism. So what would you guess if I were to tell you what is the #1 project that is in demand right now, not new building, but of existing buildings?
Healthy vending machines.
Healthy vending machine. All right, #2 project. I'll answer the question for you. It's replacement roofs. There's a whole lot
I was
of
going to say that,
roofs.
thank you.
There's a whole lot of roofs being replaced, so that creates demand on both the materials and the roofers. And Garrett and I talked about that. That's why the price has skyrocketed for roof replacement right now. Because
Supply and demand.
supply and demand. It's simple economics right now. And in 2 years, we could find that all those roofs have been replaced, and when we're ready to do our roof, the market has
Leveled off.
become depressed or leveled off, and we're getting a better price than we expect.
Mr. Chair, just one more thing, just about the capital plan process as a whole. We do have some big ticket items for the school, but just as a footnote, we're certainly not the only ones. I think that the town in a whole has done a good job of kicking the can a lot, especially with a lot of these infrastructure upgrades that have needed to happen, and there's never the funding available, so everyone just figures out how to put Band-Aids on things. So this whole capital planning process in the town has been pretty eye-opening for all of departments, to say this is really what we need to get done to maintain our buildings. They're not just the buildings, just the departments. So we're certainly not the only ones. We're certainly not the worst ones, if there is one. So it's good information to have, and it's good information for us to put forward so everyone knows what's coming up.
So what we need to do tonight is approve, basically, we need to take a vote to approve this whole list to send to the capital planning committee, that they will then determine which ones they recommend to go on the warrant to the selectmen. And what we talked about with them on last week was we explained to them, why the boilers and the hot water heater got bumped up. We explained that the study was the higher priority in the spring and still a higher priority now than all the stuff underneath, because the study was going to help us prioritize the stuff underneath and price it. But that also the boilers need to get done, and although we have a little bit of time, they still need to. So they were receptive and understood all of that. But again, the way this process works, they choose which ones they recommend to the selectmen to go on the warrant. So we need to take a vote tonight to approve the list as presented with the items listed in blue as our top priorities for the CPC's consideration.
Can I make one minor correction to what you just said? Really, the ones that you would be proposing for fall would be A2 and A3. And I say that only because I noticed the scoreboard is highlighted in blue.
Oh,
And we're fundraising for that. We do not need that to be on a warrant article.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the capital planning spreadsheet as presented, and to recommend moving 2 warrants forward. One's an engineering study for the MSH roof and MHS Millis High School and the high school, middle school roof and the high school, middle school mechanical system in the amount of $100,000, and to forward or move to the warrant for repairing the boiler in the Millis Middle and High School in the amount of $25,000.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thank you guys. All right, let's,
Mr. Wigan, just one request, one minor request. Can we put a date stamp? Because we're starting to see more of these copies, so it would be helpful.
You have asked that before, and I promised you I would do it.
That's okay.
And I figured out the sort process, but I haven't yet figured out the date process.
I can write it.
Actually, this is a 3 workbook thing, and on the summary page, the date is on there, but I need to get it in the other 2 pages.
Thank you.
So, my bad. I'll get there.
Thank you.
let's actually jump to student representatives. Sorry, guys.
Evening sports games have been moved to Saturdays. Kids from the Netherlands are still looking for host families for both boys and the girls. The SATs and the ACTs registrations are due by Wednesday, September 18th, and will be held on the morning of October 19th. Advisory for the high school starts this week on Thursday. The first half day is September 25th, and there will be a field trip offered to STEAM students and Netherlands students on that day.
Thank you, Dory. Teacher representative?
I'll do this quickly, but everybody was really excited about sharing wonderful news at the start of the year. The number of open houses, Wednesday, there's open house for Clyde Brown for grade 2 and grade 4. Thursday, that's Wednesday, September 11th, sorry about that. Tuesday, September 19th, it's middle school open house. High school open house is Thursday, September 19th, and then Wednesday, there's open house for grades 1 and 3 on the 18th. It was a great start of school for Clyde Brown. Everybody was thrilled with the ribbon cutting, and many people still want a tour of the school. Middle school, grade 6 will be doing their annual farm trip to the Community Harvest Project in Grafton next week. This will be working on the farm and perhaps harvesting veggies or helping out in other ways for the area food pantries. The high school environmental science class and the 7th grade science class are working on a collaboration to study the health of the frog pond. High schoolers teaming with the middle schoolers to complete a range of tests on the pond. The official title is, how does the diversity in an ecosystem relate to the stability of that ecosystem? Okay. Grade 8 creative writing will be working on articles to go into the Mohawk Post this year, as well as collaborating with the high school writing class. High school senior parent night is Thursday, September 26th, and they had some special news with the TV department this year. They've started a new news communications speakers series held in the TV studio during lunches with FaceTime sessions from special graduates, including today was David Frisoco. And they're going to be talking with NBC5 Maine, Matt Layton, and graduate Amy Pichinowski. So they have a lot of upcoming events. Miss Young in high school has started her Engineering Your World class, and it sounds awesome. They're going to learn important documentation techniques such as trying to build a rubber band car with only the instructions. Special ed department has new staff, has a great bridge program, and is thrilled with the new education room in the high school. District-wide, Tripsickery is in the process of casting its 10th annual production of Nutcracker. Very excited to be working on updated sound and lighting in the auditorium. Performances will be in December. Last September 17th is Constitution Day, and also 9th grade student council elections. And September 24th is National Voter Registration Day. Student council and Miss Yamba will have a voter registration forms available. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patsy. Welcome back.
Yeah. All right, our last action item is consideration to approve the custodial contract.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
In executive session at our last meeting, we approved this, and this is then brought to the committee for a vote on camera. During negotiations this summer, an agreement was reached with the local union 3900 and a cost of living for the next 3 years at 2.5% each year.
I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Roach.
I move to approve the amended custodial union agreement for years FY 20, 21, and 22.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, time and learning, we are going to, the scheduling conflicts, we are going to postpone that until a better evening for the social studies team. And then we'll move to superintendent's report.
Well, as Patsy mentioned, we had a fabulous opening of schools in all 3 buildings. Staff mentioned that this building also looked as good as they'd seen it in terms of cleanliness, and you can see we're in a revamped new library with new rug and reconfiguration that Patsy worked very hard on, and everything looked great. The custodial staff is to be commended. We had a lot of great student workers this summer because of the building project for both custodial and technology, and they did a great job. The transportation routes are settling in, and buses, a couple of our buses are full, and so we're encouraging people. It is first come, first serve. It is important to register early and actually register in June if you can for the following year. Traffic, the new Clyde Brown building has astounded everyone with how wonderful it is, and what a great environment it is for learning. It's acoustically very quiet in there too, so large groups of kids can be in various places, and it's a calm, airy, bright, beautiful environment. The traffic flow the first day was a little bit of a challenge until everybody got used to drop off and pick up, but there was a 300% improvement by day 2. The staff, it was wonderful to watch them all work together with ideas after they lived through one pickup, mostly the parent pickup in the afternoon. So they worked together, staff, even though they didn't have that as an assigned duty, there were many, many people volunteering their time and just trying to figure it out, and it was all hands on deck. They're doing similar things with all kinds of routines within the building to make sure it works well, but I have to commend Jason and Elise and the Clyde Brown staff for really very quickly working out kinks. They were highly organized, they addressed things, they're communicating exceptionally well, I believe. Our enrollment is in the packet. Overall, there's a little something tricky on the math. There is the total in district and outside of district total, I believe, is 1,212, not 1,213. So, but the numbers also, there's still something that's not quite right. But as we know, September is a time where we settle in terms of enrollment, uncovering kids. Many students, families might not know that if they've been attending Millis and they move out of Millis, they are allowed to stay in Millis as choice students. And so throughout the year, we will be probably adding to the choice number. Last year we had 86 choice by the end, in October, and this year we have 77. We do know that 11 students were seniors, the choice students, so they graduated. So we're down approximately 34 students total enrollment in the district.
So 34 students total. So we're, and I was going to wait until we get the October numbers, which are the more permanent
Yeah, they're a
numbers.
little more.
But the trend from 8th to 9th grade, from 2015 to 2016, we lost 21. From 16 to 17, we lost 21. 17 to 18, we lost 32. And then right now, 18 to 19, we lost 27. So the numbers are trending up. And so it was just another conversation about exit surveys and just to try to figure out where they're going and why they're making that choice. I know they're personal choices. We can't force parents to talk to us, but we can at least inquire to try to figure out what, if anything, as a district we can do to try to retain. Because as people go to other places, it costs us money.
Absolutely. As we've noted in the past, the vocational school for the past 2 years, that has been an increase. And the vocational schools across the state, not just here with Tri-County, are offering programs that are advanced placement programs and that appeal to college-bound students, the engineering programs, et cetera. So they're veering away from their traditional vocational mission and seeking to attract college-bound students. So that is part of it. We thought this year we'd do an anonymous survey because we did speak to everybody last year and thought that we might get a little more perhaps different feedback if it were an anonymous survey sent to the families that have exited Millis. I did note as Patsy was speaking, one of the things that we've been working on last year in this is having a lot more connections between middle and high school students. And many of the classes she spoke to are partnering with middle school middle school classes so that students in the middle school benefit from knowing what the high school experience is like. But we continue to have that dialogue, and we're open to any ideas if anybody has some other creative ideas.
Chairman's report, the capital planning committee, we talked about that during the article. It was actually a really good discussion. I think they got where we're coming from. There are a couple of things we did ask them about, you know, the high, medium, low discussion, and they mentioned that they were actually evaluating that themselves as to how, and you know,
So every one of ours is high, though.
well, now it is.
Yeah.
But
It's okay.
what they're actually talking about doing is creating kind of a weighted average system. So creating some criteria, so designating points, so you know, it gets a 1.5, and then weighted, so then for them to be able to prioritize.
Right.
Because it's, you know, even they acknowledge they get all these things and it's all high, everything's high, but what's high of high across all the towns. So they're looking at dealing with that too. So I think the only other thing that came out of the discussion that we have to monitor and watch and see how it's dealt with is the source of funding for the capital planning committee and the article. Because if all of free cash is being allocated to the capital planning committee, they have 4 pages of these lists. There will never be free cash that's not spent on things on here. And I think we just need to, we and not just us, but the town as a whole and other departments need to be aware that if that happens, there's not money for other articles that fall outside of what they recommend, which could pose issues for anybody looking for money beyond that. Because kind of once it gets endorsed by them, I think it's a tougher hurdle on town meeting floor to get funding out of that. So, and there's no theory, there's no concrete. Mike Gazinski was there, and he wasn't, they really hadn't thought through a process for determining how much free cash would be allocated versus other stuff, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I just want to, I want to commend both Ms. Roach and Mr. Wiggins and Nancy for the work that's gone on to this committee and to this forum, and I know it's been a lot of work, many versions of it, but I think I think the committee is in a better position now because of this. I think the town is in a better position, but having sat here for 10 years now, this is the first time we've really had, I think, real numbers with some semblance of a plan. I don't think we're never going to be able to find all the money, but at least we now are in a better position when push comes to shove to make choices and to push things forward. So thanks for everyone's work on this, but I know you two have spent a lot of time on this, so thank you.
Committee reports, elementary school building committee? Anything?
We have a school.
We do.
Well, if I may, I would like to thank the committee, and especially Denise Gibbons, for all the help and support, other members with the ribbon cutting as well, helping set up and doing so much. It's been truly a labor of love. This committee, right from the get-go, took the bull by the horns and did the campaigning to get the project off the ground and passed, and it's so wonderful to see the fruits of all your labor. And then internally, of course, John Engler and Terry Wiggin have done a tremendous job, especially now during the summer with the last push and getting all the furniture in and going through all the punch lists, etc. People, I said at the ribbon cutting, it truly has taken a village. We've all mentioned what a wonderful group the ESBC is, and under Wayne Klocko's leadership, and we're very fortunate because really it's not over yet, but knock on wood, there have not been major hiccups.
Correspondence? Any correspondence?
Mr. Chair, I'd
Yep.
just like to mention in the Millis Medway News, there's for September, a wonderful article about Mr. Grant's 17-year tenure as the school's athletic director, and some of the ingredients he thinks have led to the success of our athletic programs over the years. And then another article on Millis boys soccer that's looking to win the Tri-Valley League this year, perhaps.
Cool. Excellent. All right. We don't have any old or new business, and we do not have anything for executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Have a good night. Our next meeting is September 24th.